Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Somehow it's June already, so we are inching closer to Prime Day, which has now been confirmed for June 21st and June 22nd. With that in mind, we prepared just a quick overview of some tips and strategies that you can utilize as you're preparing your advertising and just your overall program for Prime Day this year. Before we get started, just to give you some brief intros so you can put a name to the voice. My name's Ann Harrell. I'm an account manager here with our strategic consulting team at PackView, and I'm joined today with Zach, our senior account manager on our strategic consulting and our in-house expert on Amazon promotions and deals. So I'm sure all of you know PackView since you did join a PackView webinar, but if somehow you wandered in here without having any idea who we are, welcome, we're happy to have you. Just to give you kind of a brief overview, PackView's product is an e-commerce platform that helps you action programmatic data and do data analysis quicker and easier than before. We work with a variety of retailers and platforms, one big one being Amazon, which should be no surprise to you given the content of today's presentation. But before we get into this, I'm going to go off video so that we can really focus on the content and hand it over to Zach to go through our agenda for today.
Awesome. Thanks, Ann. So for today, what we're going to do is recap last year's data, do a quick refresher on deals and Prime Day customer experience, take a look at dates and how to prepare, and then move into execution, tips for lead in, day of, lead out. And then finally end with a Q&A. So as we go, please feel free to shoot any questions into the Q&A portion of Zoom. We're going to try to get to as many of them as possible. And if we don't get to them, I have heard that we will be answering some of them on LinkedIn after. So make sure you follow us there as well.
Great.
All right. There's the agenda, and first off, we'll have Ann kick us off with the 2020 recap.
Thanks, Zach. So just to kind of ground everyone in what we saw last year before we get into the recommendations that we're making for this year, a couple of key trends we noticed. One big one that I'm sure everyone noticed was that Amazon gave preferential treatment to Asins that did have promotions. So this is really important whether you're promotional or not promotional, because essentially it makes it extremely hard for non-promotional Asins to show up in those top spots. Amazon really wants to give visibility to those promotions, whatever promotion they be. So in general, this is going to have effects on your performance if you're non-promotional as much as it would if you are promotional. Often those non-promotional Asins were pushed to product detail page placements, but tend to have less conversion, less engagement, and obviously less reach. So it's really important to keep that in mind if you're kind of comparing your Prime Day performance to your average performance. Prime Day deals and ads were mixed together last year, meaning that even non-sponsored posts or non-sponsored positions gave that preferential treatment to the Prime Day Asins. Another big trend that we noticed, and this is really important if you're running any Prime member promotions, is that Amazon protected that inventory specifically for Prime members to ensure that the promotions could be fulfilled. So you might actually see a little bit lower volume on any Asins that you're running Prime member only promotions on for that reason. And another big trend we noticed in 2020 was that sponsored brand ad units did not actually call out the promotional messaging as you would see in previous events or with the sponsored products that we're seeing here. We actually expect this not to be the case in 2021. We do expect that those banners will show up with your sponsored brand ad units, but just something to keep in mind that that wasn't available in 2020. So going into some more specific trends that we saw, one big one obviously was that CPCs were rapidly increasing from the previous year, and this has a lot to do with the just regularly increasing competition that we see every year. There are a couple of specific things that we're calling out here with this chart. One big one that you can see is the separation between sponsored product and sponsored brand. Sponsored brand CPCs are obviously significantly higher than that of sponsored product, but their year-over-year growth was actually lower than that of sponsored product, which tells us a couple of things. One, obviously sponsored brand is more expensive. This is expected given the value of the sponsored brand placements. They're at the top of the page, they have high engagement, high reach. They allow you to do some customized copy in some circumstances, as well as show a grouping of products together. We often see that the sponsored brand units, even though they are more expensive, do have higher efficiency. So in some ways, you could say that it's worth the additional cost. But when we're looking at sponsored product, you can see that year over year, on both days and just collectively, sponsored product CPCs were growing quicker than that of sponsored brands, which tells us that maybe there's a little less competition in the space for sponsored brand placements and significantly more for those sponsored product placements, which isn't surprising, but it just lets us know that diversifying the ad types that you're utilizing, and this doesn't just mean sponsored product and sponsored brand, but also going into sponsored display, and if possible, doing some DSP, will allow you to really reach those goals, even though we're seeing this rapidly increasing competition. With CPC increases, unsurprisingly, we saw ad spend rapidly increase last year as well. We've seen this essentially every year since Prime Day started in 2015. But last year, collectively, spend more than doubled year over year. So one big call out here is that you should be prepared to spend more during peak event periods. And essentially now, both days of the event are a peak event period. This being said, looking at the 2 days individually, Prime Day 1 did see a significantly larger increase year over year than Prime Day 2. So with Prime Day 1 year over year, we saw 263% growth over the previous year. And in Prime Day 2, we saw only 238% growth. Still both large numbers. But what this does say is, you know, as we're talking about diversification within your ad types, you should also try to diversify the time periods that you're promoting and the time periods that you're spending the most in. Because Prime Day 2, though it still has heightened traffic, heightened conversion likelihood, might be a little less costly to you. And something else that's notable here is that when we're looking at the lead out period, specifically the day immediately following Prime Day, we see costs essentially plummet. People start spending significantly less, but there's still some deals running and there's definitely still elevated traffic. So these periods can be very valuable as well. And as we're going through our strategy, we'll try to highlight not only the 2 days of the event, but the lead in and lead out period as well. So just to kind of wrap up some of the big learnings we had from 2020, and I'm going to go briefly through some of these. Obviously, big one at the top, promotions equal top positions. We went through this at the start of the presentation, but it's going to be difficult to appear in any top of search placements if you're not promotional during the event days. Another big thing, and this kind of ties back into the CPC and cost increases that we were discussing earlier, it's really important for you to identify your spend thresholds, especially for high value competitive placements, and then leverage any tools you have. In this case, we're calling out bid placement modifiers to help you win those competitive placements at the right time. Because they're so costly, if you're not using modifiers or day parting or some sort of tools to help you kind of pace your spend, you could eventually have outages. And so it's really important to make sure that you identify the spend levels you're willing to go to and then utilize tools to make sure that you're hitting those levels efficiently. Again, tying back into some of the costs and CPC increases that we mentioned earlier, if you're non-promotional, it might be best to consider pulling back your spend and bids, if not pausing some of your campaigns during the actual event days to prevent overspend when potentially the upside is not as high for you, especially given the fact that a lot of those top positions on search placements are going to be taken by deal Asins. It's going to be harder for you and more costly for you to get in those top spots. So it might be the right move to pull back during the event. Another thing is that if you can customize, do so. Customization allows you to have just additional attributes to stand out against the millions of Asins that are going to be on promotion during the event. So you can change creative and copy on a variety of ad types. Sponsor brand, sponsor display, DSP allows you to update and do some static copy that can be customized. So it's really important to keep that in mind and try to utilize those tools to help you stand out. And last but not least, and we'll get into this a little bit more as Zach goes through some of our kind of deals and user experience, but visibility last year was a little limited due to Amazon's use of the Today's Deals widget, which takes up some really valuable real estate on any given page right at the top. So utilizing sponsored brand is actually going to be increasingly important this year to help drive visibility because it shows up above that Today's Deals widget. So now that we've kind of grounded ourselves in what happened last year, I'm going to hand it over to Zach to go through a deal refresher for you.
Thank you, Anne. So first here, I want to just set our stage on what is Prime Day about and why is Prime Day so important. Prime Day is really about building trust and generating excitement for Amazon shoppers and for the Prime program. So Amazon can do this by offering exceptional deals, an easily navigable experience, and making sure that those deals are on really popular brands and products. So you'll see call outs such as top brands, hot products, bestsellers, and things like that very frequently showing up. Amazon delivers the excitement by creating really strict pricing tenets that are really often or rarely accepted for anything with an E, not an A. So what they do here is create an order of deals from deal of the day as the most prized down to Prime member promotions, which are also merchandised very well, but they have very good, very strict, very big discounts for these top products. And these go in order of visibility. Deals of the day run for 12 hours to 48 hours. Wow deals for about 4 hours or until they sell out. Lightning deals 6 to 12 hours, occasionally a little bit less, and Prime member promotions anywhere from 1 day to 2 days. These are listed in order of visibility, but there is definitely an argument to be made on the PMP side, which is Prime member promotions, that these run a really long time, so they do get a lot of visibility, although it's not as concentrated as a lightning deal or a deal of the day or a wow deal, which appear for shorter durations, but higher up on the deals pages. And this is a bit of a broader, more detailed list of promotion types. Not all of these are relevant for Prime Day. There's actually a blog post that I wrote a couple weeks back on the PackView blog that goes into these in detail. I definitely recommend reading that if you'd like to kind of understand the nuances of each of the ad types. We don't have time to go through each of them today, but essentially this is the same as the last chart, just a little bit more detailed. These are examples of deals and what they look like. Note that the customer experience is going to be a little bit different every time you do, every time there's a new event. So the one on the left is a deal of the day example. It will likely be a blue box for Prime Day. That kind of similar to what the lightning deal image looks like. They have a different CX for each of the event days, and they change these over time. But it is at the top of the deals page, top of the event page, which are merged into one for the day itself, or for the 2-day period itself. Next is lightning deals. They go for kind of creating that scarcity with a % of the deal products claimed and how soon they end. And then best deals or PMPs, which are essentially the same thing. One is gated and one is not. These just show a strike-through price on what you pay versus what the list price was before. The last one is wow deals. These are kind of the really cool, exciting combination of deals of the day with lightning deals. There's about 1 or 2 of those running at every couple hours, I believe, is their frequency. They may change this up again, but they have something exciting. It flashes up on the page. Maybe there's some different colors. This is specifically called out as this might sell fast. They're trying to generate some excitement, keep people coming back. It's been a multi-year effort by Amazon to get people to attend day 2 of the event at as close as possible to the attendance level of day 1. One of the ways they do that is by having continuously refreshed deals, so people don't see the same deal every time they come back. They want to keep things fresh. Don't want any deals to get stale. So this is the current experience. If you go on Amazon and look at their kind of early Prime deals, they started yesterday, I believe, or 2 days ago. This is what you would see if you're a non-Prime member. So you'll see Prime exclusive, you'll see sign up for Prime. You will see the price that you would get if you were a Prime member, but where you would purchase it, it's going to say join Prime. The point of this lead-in period for them is to acquire new customers. This is like one of the biggest drive periods for Amazon in getting new Prime members, who then you're going to be able to target, whether it's with display later or with your deals that should be coming up here in 3 weeks. So this is the non-Prime experience. And next is the current Prime experience. So you'll see view item instead. of Join Prime. You'll see Add to Cart. You'll see Prime exclusive deal. This is exclusively for you. This goes to Amazon's vision of one, delivering value, and two, generating excitement and value for the whole program, the Prime program. It's not just delivery anymore. I have a slide coming up here in a few slides that Prime is kind of a lifestyle, and at least that's what Amazon would like to convey, and that there's way more than just a 2-day delivery that you get out of it. And this wants you to kind of understand that very easily. Anne mentioned earlier that deals in search is something that was kind of new last year, and this is definitely something that's here to stay. So if you look on the top left, this is a merchandised Amazon first party widget that has the limited time deal tag. This is from Q4. Even on their own products, which generally speaking have priority placements, first party products really are kind of top of search or very close kind of tag there. This is one of the first examples where I saw limited time deal tags on their own products. Below that, you see Prime Day deals. This was on a search for the brand agnostic search query batteries, a top search within the batteries category. And they merchandise these Prime Day deals because they want to drive people there. If you look on the top right, then you'll see the same search, batteries, but in Q4 and on desktop, obviously here. They have this today's deals widget that is above all of the sponsored ads, at least the sponsored product ads, as well as the first 4 organic placements, which is a bit surprising as an advertiser. They love the revenue that comes from everything that we do from a cost per click perspective. However, they are prioritizing the deals because they care so much about surfacing those deals. Most of those products there in the today's deals widget on the screenshot on the right probably do 1 to 2% of sales on a daily basis versus the advertised products and the top organic products. But they value the deals experience so much that they are going to prioritize that very frequently in search, even if it comes at the expense of some ad dollars. Here's another good example of the deals in search experience from last Prime Day. So the example on the left is originating from the event page. If you go to amazon.com/goldbox, that's the regular deals page on Prime Day, it will be .com/Prime Day. And if you search from there, it automatically filters to only include Prime Day deals, which is something new for last year. So on the left, you see is both of the products that show up have a Prime Day deal tag. This one ad, one organic. And then on the sponsored brand ad, the Renew Life one up top, there are no Asins shown. The reason is because that doesn't have a deal. If you look on the right, if you go and search the site at the same time, but not originating from the event page, you don't have that box selected. And you can see the Asins included there. You do see a sponsored ad with a Prime Day deal still merchandised, but that's just, that's an ad. And below that, the actual #1 organic placement on that search was a Smarty Pants Kids immunity vitamin at the time. So that is, a really significant difference. And depending on if you are live on deals or not, you may have a very different ability to spend. We'll talk about that a little bit here going forward. And as I mentioned, Amazon Prime is kind of a lifestyle. So they have launched so many things in the last couple of years. Prime Video, Prime Gaming is a newer one. Music is a little older, but expanding. Wardrobe, they have Twitch, all of the Alexa programs and more. So kind of going into the things that are on the right side here, Get More with Prime. This is just a screenshot taken from their landing page yesterday. They're pushing, the first thing you see is an additional 1% reward for a total of 6% for Prime members who use the co-branded credit card. First off, the credit card is extremely popular and it drives a ton of purchases on Amazon because 5% back is really quite good for people who spend a lot on Amazon. But that one is something that they are going to drive quite a bit of traffic to the Amazon co-branded credit card landing page. Next is Alexa deals. You can get in early. You can purchase products via Alexa now. Kind of exciting. The adoption hasn't been massive yet, but I think they're going to continue to really push in that direction. It's kind of one of the ways they view their future. And last is something I heard previously when I worked at Amazon. One of my vendors told me that she would go and add every product that she wanted about 2 weeks before Prime Day to her cart. And then she would log back in on Prime Day a couple times per day and check if the price was down. And Amazon probably realized a bunch of people were doing that, and they did the exact same thing. So they want to drive repeat visits from people, as I mentioned before, especially on day 2. And one of the ways they do it is they keep enabling ways to get people to come back to the site more and more. So next, Anne's going to take us through the key dates and a couple checklist items for everybody as we finalize our strategies.
Thanks, Zach. So to start off here, we're going to look at some key dates. These are past and upcoming. So as you can see, submissions are now closed for promotions. Hopefully, many of you already went through that process and got all of these submissions in and approved, so you're ready to go. One big call out here, though, even though many of these dates have passed, is just to show you the amount of preparation and the prep time that goes into preparing for Prime Day. And this is obviously looking more specifically at handling kind of the technical to ensure that all of your technical considerations are handled, but this also ties back into the preparation that you'll be doing through your ad programs and your retail business. And so really prep is like 90% of the game when it comes to Prime Day. Execution is a really, really small piece of it. So to go into that in some more detail, we have a couple of key things that we want you to remember as you're leading up to Prime Day, and you can start these things and start preparing for these things right now. A big one on this list is to launch any new planned search and DSP campaigns as early as possible, preferably, in order to build that relevancy and momentum for those campaigns going into the event. And so this is not only going to have an effect on the traffic that goes into these campaigns initially, but it's also going to allow your campaigns day of to be more efficient. Because you will have built that relevancy and your relevancy score will be a little bit higher, it will cost you less to get in those top spots. The second thing on the list here is potentially the most important thing that we do as we're preparing for Prime Day, and that is to have a very intricate and detailed spend plan, preferably with established budgets for each individual day. And this includes the lead in and lead out. As I mentioned earlier on, these periods can also see elevated spend and elevated traffic, so it's important to include these in your plans, especially when it comes to budget, and also to have unique budgets for these periods as opposed to the Prime Days themselves to avoid overspending or outages. So it's really just important to keep budget top of mind throughout the whole planning process. That being said, we're telling you to prepare, but you also need to be prepared for change. So being flexible is really, really important because we can, look at the data and we know what to expect, but often demand exceeds those expectations. So if you can have approvals ready ahead of time in order to sign off on extra inventory or additional budget that you pull forward, that will just save you the headaches during the event and potentially allow you to be on during advertising hours that are super, super valuable that you otherwise potentially could have had some outages. So be prepared with your budgets, but also be prepared to change those budgets and other parts of your ad strategy if need be. And the last thing on this list isn't necessarily specific to your ad strategy, but just to overall program health during the event. Like you need to have backup plans for your budgets and your inventory, it's also important to have backup plans for your fulfillment. So consider partnering with a third-party provider like Deliver to make sure that if demand does exceed expectations, all of your orders are fulfilled in a timely manner. So to go into this more specifically, we prepared a list for you that details 5 of the most important things that you can do right now to start preparing for the Prime Day event. The first one encompasses quite a bit, actually. So this is to optimize your keyword and budget strategy ahead of time, but to be changing those immediately before and during the event to have dynamic performance as you're leading into Prime Day. What this includes is obviously if you're going to upload any keywords, do some keyword research, make sure you have Prime Day specific targeting in place. Additionally, obviously with budgets, have budgets planned for the individual days by campaign, but budgets also includes things like day parting. If you have the ability to do so, plan that ahead of time. Have unique day parting schedules for each individual day of the event and have those schedules ready to go so that you're not logging on at midnight to change them yourself. The second thing on this list is more about overall program health, but can definitely have an effect on your ad performance as well. Just review your product pages and your brand store Make sure all of your content is up to date and fully optimized. This includes, your images, your graphics, titles, and text. Make sure that they're compliant with Amazon standards. One, because that's what the customer is used to seeing, but two, you obviously don't want things pulled for compliance during the event, which can definitely have a negative effect on your performance if that ASIN happened to be promotional. Number three is to ensure that all of your promotional ASINs are featured in auto and top manual campaigns to encourage visibility. This is obviously really important that you have these featured during Prime Day, but if you can add those to top campaigns now to make sure that the ASINs are getting momentum, visibility prior to the event, that will also help you out day of. The fourth, is specific to testing. And so this can mean testing in these weeks leading up to Prime Day or tests you're planning to run during Prime Day, but prepare those tests ahead of time. So if you're running them now, get them up, get as much data as possible, and then use those learnings to apply to your Prime Day specific strategy. And if you're running them during the event, make sure that you have all the settings in place and just flip a switch to turn those on and get them to go, ready to go. Different tests that you can run and different tests that we're talking about here, obviously testing different targeting and keywords, bidding schedules, so your day parting or your budget by day. And then a big one on here is obviously messaging. If you can, A/B test copy ahead of time so that you know what's going to be most effective during the event. We definitely recommend doing so, but you can also test during the event and use that elevated traffic to gather some additional learnings. And last but definitely not least is to have all of your retargeting campaigns. So this can be with DSP, if you're running that, and sponsored display, which both have retargeting and remarketing options. Have those on and ready to ramp spend immediately following the traffic surge. So typically on the latter half of Prime Day, we recommend that you start ramping up these campaigns in order to really encourage conversion. And this is including the lead out period. So you don't want to do this just on the second day or the first day of Prime Day, but you really want to make sure that you're encouraging all of that additional traffic you got to convert in the 3 days following the event as well. So now that we've gone through what to do before the event, I'm going to hand it over to Zach to talk about what to do during the actual days of Prime Day.
Awesome. There we go. So if you have deals live, it's really important that you increase budgets for your campaigns. Traffic may be up to 10x for certain categories and certain products. It's a really large increase in traffic and demand on the site. So make sure that you have adequate budgets taken up beforehand, so you don't run out of budget, especially early on. I would also recommend that you ensure that you've got your whole brand defense strategy covered. Particularly mix into higher price point items, trade up items, and things like that. And for your conquesting campaigns, make sure that you're using the right products. This could be a lower ASP item with a bigger discount that has a really nice percentage off. It could be your top selling product that is on discount. If you can't do it on every item, make sure that you have your strategy organized so that you're allocating your budget to the right products. This is going to be kind of differentiated by what competitors' strategies are as well. So you'll have some competitors that have deals and some that don't. Make sure that you treat them differently because which ASINs you use to target each of those types of competitors are going to vary. Next, I would say is Prime Day is super important, but I'd imagine that most of you are in the business of making money. So you probably can't pay unlimited cost per click on every campaign. On every keyword the whole 2 days. That may be the case for some of you, and I envy that. But for most folks, you need to make sure that you identify how much you're actually willing and able to pay on a per click basis, and don't go above it. Amazon has very high traffic every day. They have very high traffic in the lead out period, and there are a ton of new to Amazon and new to brand shoppers available for you to target. Don't waste all of your money for the whole quarter just to make sure that you have a really nice screenshot from Prime Day. So I would say just don't blow your budget just to make things look good. Make sure that you're smart about where you're spending and how you're spending your dollars. One thing I use to identify that max cost per click bid that I'm willing to pay is I look at historical conversion rates during events, and I base my expected ROAS on my cost per click, on my conversion rate, and the ASP of the product for that time period. Third on here is if you're not promotional, consider pausing your campaigns until the bid rush is over. So this can be done via manually pausing campaigns or using day parting technology in PackView or other tool providers. I would just make sure that you're not wasting money. Particularly when you're not promotional and others are, you run the risk of your products looking unappealing. That may not be the case for every category, but it's something to definitely be considered as you're building your strategy. And last is something that we always recommend is tracking everything you can, learning from everything that happens. Make sure that you have share voice tracking set up. Note the organic search ranks before, during, and after events. How do your products rank on the deals page versus competitors? Learning everything from Prime Day is going to be super helpful for you to set your Q4 strategy, and doing that is going to set you up for success for the year. On top of that, it's really useful to look back at prior Prime Days for your planning, and the more well thought out your plans are, and especially after when you identify a really clear learnings in your postmortems, that helps set you up for success in the future. All right, a couple more tips and tricks for Prime Day. Point one on here is really can be summarized as work harder than everybody else. That sounds a little bit silly because who wants to, work harder than everyone all the time? But Prime Day is a short period and it's extremely busy. And on Prime Day, I make sure that I'm constantly walking the store in between meetings and in between optimizations. Make sure that you identify what competitors are doing. Make sure you identify where your ads are winning and where they're not. Make sure you understand what the customer experience is. Last year, the deals in search was a new experience that we hadn't seen, so we had to adjust midday. Make sure that you're setting yourself up for success right now by having hyper-segmented campaigns. So that will allow you to make quick tweaks to your bids or your strategy day of, because there'll definitely be some things that you can expect or don't expect that will end up happening. Number two is spend smartly. This is using day parting, reserving adequate budget. That starts today. So make sure that you're adequately stocked up on budget for the last week of the month when Prime Day is going to be happening. Make sure that you're flexible with that budget as well. Don't be overspending now so you don't have enough budget then, and don't overspend on Prime Day so you don't have budget after. It sounds easy to say is budget intelligently, but make sure that you have an expected spend. And this goes back to using postmortem from previous years. Understand how spend goes in the weeks leading up to and after, as well as the data we shared at the beginning of the presentation. This will go out after. Really useful to make sure that you're planning your spend as volume on Amazon occurs. And the last one on here is utilize automation whenever possible. Prime Day can really be a grind. And I know I've spent a couple of Prime Days working 20+ hours, 2 days in a row. Not really fun. But if you can use automation, use it. That is day parting, that's scheduling bid optimizations before and after, that's scheduling things in the lead up and lead out. You can really cut down on human error using bulk edits and rules. Make sure that you're just setting yourself up for success so that you can free up your time to do store walks, to work with clients or with internal stakeholders at the brand on how things are going and what you can do to change. And then next, we're going to handle a couple conversations here on post-Prime Day adjustments and thoughts on how you should handle your reporting after. Anne will be up first.
Thanks, Zach. So just like we had a checklist of what you should be doing prior to Prime Day to prepare, we also have a checklist of what you should be doing right after the event. So just to go through this briefly, number one is something we've already touched on, but you'll want to ramp your DSP and SD retargeting campaigns right after Prime Day. If possible, run both of these. If you do have DSP, obviously that's one consideration, but sponsored display, you can also retarget and remarket people who have viewed or purchased your products. So you'll want to have these active and ready to ramp immediately following and towards the end of the event in order to, again, capture that traffic that maybe didn't convert, but you will see an influx of traffic, so you want to make sure that you're optimizing on that to your fullest extent. Number two is to have a plan in place to pull forward funding if you need to capture any residual traffic. Again, the lead out is one of those periods that people tend to forget about when they're planning for Prime Day, but it does see elevated traffic, elevated engagement, elevated conversion. So you want to make sure that your ads are active and you're showing up as high as possible during that event, even if you don't have Asins promotional. Again, we'll just see that heightened traffic and engagement, so you want to make sure that you're optimizing towards that. This ties back to being flexible with your budget. You want to have a plan, but if you're seeing demand that exceeds that plan, make sure that you have additional contingency plans in place to pull some funding forward in order to, again, capture that potentially valuable traffic. Number 3 on here is to revise your day parting settings and your role-based optimizations, and also your budgets, obviously. This is speaking from personal experience. You do not want to leave the same day parting and budgets and rules in place that you have on Prime Day during the lead out, because you could potentially way overspend during that period. So if possible, you'll want to use automation to change these for you. If you don't have that available, you'll want to make sure that you remember to go in later in the day or very early in the morning and the days following Prime Day in order to change all of the settings that you had in place to account for that heightened traffic during the event. Number 4 is obviously to review your performance, but to do so more frequently than you normally would, because even though it is slower traffic than the event itself, the lead out period still sees higher traffic, and you want to make sure that you're optimizing towards that. One big way is obviously that you'll probably be shifting budgets a little more frequently than you would in your average day to day. And you also want to make sure that you're planning ahead for this, but don't overly rely on benchmarks from last year. Every year, Prime Day is different. We see different traffic trends. We can predict something, but we want to make sure that we're being both proactive and reactive as we're preparing for the event. And the last thing on this list is to use your share of voice to figure out what happened during Prime Day. A big thing that you can use share of voice for is obviously to identify your largest competitors. And then from that, you can identify and uncover unique opportunities to conquest during the lead out and just during your day-to-day general performance. So make sure that you're utilizing not only the performance, but the learnings that you got from Prime Day to adjust your strategy in the lead out and then moving forward throughout the rest of the year. So as we mentioned, you'll want to have kind of a full funnel approach to Prime Day, but it differs by the time period that we're talking about. And so we really wanted to visualize that for you. So this is the funnel. And as you can see, we have identified a couple of different ad types that can support you as you're approaching various parts of the funnel. And then what part of the Prime Day cycle would you typically want to target this part of the advertising funnel? Lead in, and during the early part of Prime Day, you'll definitely want to target that awareness and consideration part of the funnel. You'll want people to know who your brand are. You want people to log on Prime Day and have your brand top of mind. So in order to do this, you can utilize ad types like sponsored brand, which obviously is a really great tool in branding efforts and gives you those really top high value positions. But you can also use in-market and lifestyle targeting, which is available both on sponsored display and DSP. And so this allows you to search and target for people who are searching within relevant product categories or who fit within certain lifestyle segments that make sense for your brand. Then moving into Prime Day and following the event, you'll probably be utilizing and more likely sponsored products, sponsored display, and some DSP retargeting. These help you really drive purchase intent, purchase experience, and more importantly, actual conversions. So you'll want to make sure that you have those optimized for the latter half of the event, and specifically with retargeting in the lead out period, where you're making sure you're encouraging conversion for all of that awareness that you generated at the start of the Prime Day cycle. So you can do retargeting again with both sponsored display and DSP. You can do them joint together as a collective strategy, and that's definitely something we recommend if you have the ability to do so.
Just to add to that really quick, and I definitely agree on using both sponsored display and also DSP. I would push folks who haven't tested out sponsored display to launch some campaigns beforehand and make sure that you're targeting competitors as well as cross-selling on your own brand. It's featured very prominently on the page. For those of you who have been working with Amazon for a long time, this used to be the product display ad. You may have not used it very often because the capabilities were more limited beforehand. Since then, they've added it into the API, so you're able to edit things through PackView. And there's just a lot more features that weren't available beforehand. So we've definitely increased our adoption of that ad type, and we'll continue to go forward with that into Prime Day. It's definitely a good opportunity. Awesome. So here, going into reporting for post Prime Day, 3 different things called out here. These are kind of how should you approach your postmortem, and I'd say you want to kind of slice and dice data as many ways as possible. So this is going to be by campaign, by ASIN, by category or subcategory, and also by target segment. So is it a branded category, competitor, or adjacent targeting within search? So identify the places where you underspent or overspent, and most importantly, understand why. Are you unable to spend because of the customer experience that Amazon has made a change on? Are you unable to spend because you don't have enough budget allocated or too much budget allocated to the wrong place? Make sure you understand each of those things so you can revise that in the future. And kind of the theme, honestly, of everything postmortem should be, how can you fix this for Q4 or improve on a success for Q4, and then also for Prime Day next year. Second on here is weigh the cost. That means identify which ad types, which keyword targeting segments, which CX changes worked, what didn't work. We mentioned before that in prior years, sponsored brand underperformed due to having the no deal tag within the sponsored brand ad. But once they fixed that, we immediately saw phenomenal success in Q4 last year with sponsored brand. So depending on those little tweaks that they make to try to always make the experience better for customers, it may make certain things improve or decrease in value, and make sure you identify that and adjust for that for the next time. And last is identify what competitors did or didn't do. This is by using share of voice tracking. This is by shopping the site and noticing who's live, where they're live, what experience they're taking advantage of or not, and make sure that you adjust your strategy because of that. I think things to note here that are really important are who's active on search, who's active on deals, who has a lot of presence on display ads that you see both on site and off site afterwards. You can adjust your strategy with setting expectations on who's going to do what. Another thing I would note specifically is when did competitors start increasing their activity on search? So some people may wait until a day or two beforehand, and you can note that for Q4 and when you can expect cost per click within your category to increase. This is something that we would really look to our share of voice tracking to identify and track for our postmortems. All right, and just wanted to include this in here. I hope everyone saw the wiggle of the apple and orange. That's my pride and joy. I think there's something really important to note, and that is that you are not comparing apples to apples if you're looking at Black Friday, Cyber Monday versus Prime Day. There is a very big difference in how these promotions or these discounts are accounted for literally from an accounting perspective, and that makes a huge difference in a lot of metrics. So the reason that these are different is because one is a site discount, that would be Black Friday or Cyber Monday, and the Prime Day discount is at point of sale. So some other names you might know for a point of sale, these would be gated promotions, closed promotions, in-cart discounts. All of these things do not impact the site price. They are essentially a buy X, get Y deal. Become a Prime member, get a discount. This is just a different setup, and it isn't actually discounting the site price, which seems like a minor distinction, but it does matter. If we move into the second bullet point in there is OPS versus OPS less sales discounts. The difference is that one of them reports from a revenue perspective the higher amount. You can see on the right there, Prime Day and Black Friday, the graphic under the apple and orange, what you actually see. So in both of these cases, the shopper is paying $7, and the way that you see revenue and thus the ROAS, the net PPM, your ASP, all of these are going to look different just based on how and where that discount is provided. When I was working for Amazon, I was in the software and video games category. And because a lot of it was digital, we would sometimes see a 70%, 80% discount off of a list price. This just kind of going through the two different accounting methodologies here. One of these would show an 85% net PPM, and the other would show 25%. Just understanding the difference between those two is enough to, when you look through your reporting and your postmortem, just note the difference, and that may be an asterisk to show how big of a discount it was and what type of promotion you used. But it's something really important to note so that you don't misunderstand why net PPM was so high or so low versus another period. And so we're going to kind of take this home here with Anne summarizing what we discussed, and then we're going to move over to a Q&A. It looks like we have about 12 minutes left, so we'll have ample time for questions.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. So I'll just briefly go through this, just some of the biggest takeaways from what we went through today. One big one is obviously to prepare early, prepare your strategy. This includes budgets and your keyword targeting, your campaign strategy now, and activate any new campaigns now to make sure that you build that relevancy, which ties us into the second bullet there. Additionally, you'll want to optimize ahead of time. So any existing campaigns, not ones that essentially you're launching for Prime Day, you'll want to make sure that they're fully optimized. In addition to your campaigns and ad strategy, you'll want to make sure that your content on your PDPs and your brand store is fully optimized and complies with Amazon standards. And last but not least, and this really ties everything in, is to have a plan A, plan for what you know, use the data that you have available from previous years and recent performance to estimate the amount of traffic that you'll expect and base your budgets off of that, but have a plan B for all things, especially for your budgets and your inventory. Make sure that you're flexible during the event and again are able to be both proactive by planning ahead, but reactive to any changes in behavior that we see during Prime Day. So as Zach said, we're going to take it away with Q&A and open up the floor to all of you.
Awesome. So we have quite a few questions. We've answered some of them, and we'll just go ahead and answer these others live. So the first question I'm going to take on here, this one is from Caitlin. Do you have any recommendations on adding Prime Day callouts to the brand store? Should this be called out specifically? I would say yes. So we've seen really good success with sponsored brands, as we mentioned. I would always recommend updating your copy in the sponsored brand ad units itself, as well as on your landing page. So there are deals widgets that you're able to add to the brand store. It's a great place to merchandise your deals. Make sure people are actually seeing the products that you have on promotion. It's kind of a kind of free additional opportunity to when someone clicks on your ad to see the other products. So that's a really good example of something that you should update, just so that why not take advantage of it if you have the opportunity to drive a high likelihood of conversion click. So I think that's a great idea, Caitlin.
Yeah, and I'll take the next one. This is from Maria. She said, how can we find time periods with more efficiency through reporting? One big way that you can do this is look back on previous Prime Days or previous key drive periods like C5, and notice periods where you have high ROAS, low spend. Those are areas that you'll likely want to increase your investment in the future. You can also do this during the event. If you see it extremely high ROAS, more so than you expect, that probably means that you're overly efficient and that you could spend a little bit more during that time and balance out your efficiency through the whole period itself.
Awesome. Next question here comes from Patrick. He says, I'm debating if I should launch Prime Day deal creative and a special section in our store early to capture add to carts. Can you think of any reasons to or not to do this? There are probably good reasons for both sides of that. I'd say you want to ensure that you are driving traffic to the page of your brand store that's most likely to convert at any given time. I wouldn't launch additional creative way early unless you're expecting people to be adding to cart, as you mentioned. If you have a deal of the day or something coming up, perhaps that's a good way to build a likely to convert retargeting pool. I would definitely recommend updating creative for the day of. I've had success updating the creative on sponsored brand as well as on display campaigns just for the day or 2-day period in this case, or for deals of the day in the past on a single day. So anything you can do to be really engaging and very specific and very segmented in your campaigns, I would recommend it. I think there are definitely times when you're perhaps doing a little bit more churn than is worth it. But if you're trying to squeeze every dollar out of the day that you can, this is something I would definitely recommend doing.
Okay, and I'll take the next one. Ash asks, there's a share of voice bid boost rule that will keep increasing bids for ads to remain on desired placements. Is this something that will be effective during Prime Day? My answer would be yes and no. With any automated rule, just make sure that you go in and you adjust the thresholds to consider the influx of traffic and spend that is expected during Prime Day. If you don't, this rule will probably stop pushing based on your existing thresholds. Additionally, it's circumstantial depending on whether you're promotional or not. Again, as we mentioned earlier on in the presentation, some of those kind of top positions and positions on search pages really won't be available unless you are promotional. So if you're not promotional, it's going to be harder to get that additional share of voice, even with automation in place. And I would just make sure that you're really careful and monitoring any automation that you do have in place, specifically with rules like this, to prevent it from pushing your spend beyond a level that you're comfortable with. And so most of these automated rules, including this one, I believe has a specific threshold that it will push your bid to. So just make sure that you utilize those tools to prevent any overspend during the event.
Yeah, to add to that, I would really try to do what I can to identify ahead of time exactly what you want to bid. That's a kind of a pet peeve of mine, is the more automation that you rely on for one single day of optimizations, it becomes a little risky. I like to schedule things that I would be doing manually. I turn off a lot of my rules for the 2-day period and restart them after. I think it makes it easier for you to kind of implement exactly what you want for that specific slice of time, and then revisit that after. Next question we have is which competitive, this is from Mike at Kane, which competitive digital retailers have historically been the beneficiaries of Prime Day Halo? So this is a great question, and Amazon kind of created this random holiday to celebrate Prime members that everyone else in e-commerce has taken advantage of. We see a lot of traffic go to Walmart.com, to Target.com, and over the past couple years, especially as Amazon has gained additional market share, and kind of this is both Prime Day and Q4, we've seen a lot of folks that have moved towards more kind of shop local trends, Shopify, Etsy, other smaller, more specific retailers, perhaps in maybe a B&H or something like that with very specific customer segments. They see a lot of additional traffic, particularly things that may be on deal on Amazon or not on deal that people had hoped were on deal. They go to other places to deliver traffic, or to find those sales, which delivers a lot of traffic to the competitor sites. Something that we haven't seen yet that I would love to see would be Chewy. If you're listening, launch a Dog Days of Summer deal. That would be really exciting for all of the dog owners out there. My dog can always use additional discounted treats. So definitely suggest that to any Chewy folks that may be listening.
Great. It looks like Mark asked how we can measure share of voice within PackView. Well, that's a great question. PackView actually has a whole section essentially dedicated to your share of voice tracking. So you have a competitor analysis section where you can input the keywords that you would like to track the share for. And then over time, you'll be able to see the changes in that. You'll be able to see what other brands are bidding on those specific keywords, what percentage of traffic for those keywords those brands have, including yourself. And then you can also wrap this up on the brand level beyond just the keyword level to see how much you're growing for sponsored products, sponsored brand. You can even look at your organic ranking in there.
I'm going to try to answer two questions at once. First is Megan asks, will other promotions and coupons get some preferential treatment if they are not Prime Day exclusive? And Sar asks, what would you recommend for brands that are selling in categories that aren't eligible for Prime Day discounts? So two things here. These are kind of, the same kind of idea. I'd say for coupons, you will still get some additional traffic. They will still have the benefit of increasing conversion. They still live in certain places on site. But in terms of the deals widget and the event page, these are going to be reserved explicitly for Prime member promotions, for Prime exclusive lightning deals and spotlight deals. So these are all Prime gated. The 2 day period is specifically about Prime members. So you will definitely lose visibility versus other time periods. Promotion types like a non-Prime specific lightning deal or a best deal do not appear on any of the deals pages for that time period. Before and after, you will have visibility, but not during that 48-hour period. And then for brands that aren't able to have any Prime Day official discounts, you can still do your search activity, especially if your competitors aren't. I may just be a little bit more cautious about how aggressive my bids are for things that other folks that do have deals may overlap on. So things that say like for kids or for babies, you're going to have a lot of competition from a ton of different categories. Who your actual competitors are from a sales perspective are not going to be the same as who's bidding on the same keywords. So just be really cautious of how you treat your keywords that may have a lot different volume during that time frame.
Great. And Patrick asked, he said, I'm debating if I should launch Prime Day Deal Creative and a special section on our store early to capture add to carts. Can you think of any reason to or not to do this? That's a great question. Specifically with the special section in your store, that can actually be extremely useful when you're pulling in from sponsored brand ads that you can link to various parts of your brand store. So if you have, all of your promotional Asins on one page, then you can create special sponsored brand ad units that will link directly to that, and that can be really valuable. You can also link to that through certain DSP campaigns and targeting. So if you are running DSP, that can be helpful. I would just be careful about when you launch this page and also when you launch the specific creative to make sure that it's aligning with an active deal. Just to make sure that, again, you're complying with everything that Amazon has in terms of standards and also not driving people to a page where they think there will be a deal running and the deal is not currently active.
So that looks like all the time we have for questions today. So Anna, if you want to flip to the next slide, we have a couple more questions that we're going to be answering on our LinkedIn page. So make sure you follow us there. And if you go to one more slide, you can visit us at packview.com or email our sales team at sales@packview.com. And we hope everybody enjoyed the content here. We have a couple more webinars coming up, and we have a lot of great content on our blog. So I highly recommend checking out our website if you haven't already. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.